Chapter 43 of Agnes Sorel by G.P.R. James. This Librivox Recording is in the public domain. Chapter 43. There was a great change in Agnes, and Madame de Brecy remarked it immediately. Hers was an earnest, though a cheerful spirit, and when she was thoughtful, those who knew her well might be sure she was debating something with herself, examining some course of action, trying some thought or feeling before the tribunal of her own heart. All that night, and all the following morning, she was very thoughtful. Her gaiety seemed gone, and though she could both listen and converse, yet at the least pause she fell back into reverie again. Jean Charost, too, was a good deal changed, at least toward Agnes, and the mother's eye marked it with very varied feelings. His manner was more tender, his language more glowing. There was a spirit in his words which had never been there before. He, too, was often very thoughtful, but Jean Charost had other motives for thought besides those connected with Agnes. Early on the morning of the day following the incidents lately detailed, he sent a man up to the watch-tower, with others, to keep his eye on the valley of the Cher, and Madame de Brecy remarked that the soldiers who had remained at St. Florent were no longer scattered about, either amusing themselves in the village or sporting in the courtyard, but were gathered together, all in busy occupation, some cleaning and rubbing down their horses, some polishing armor, or sharpening swords and lances, some skillfully making arrows or quarrels for their crossbow. She refrained from asking any questions till after the midday meal, but it was hardly over when the horn of the watcher upon the tower was winded loudly, and De Brecy, springing up from the table, ran up the stairs himself, as if on some notice of danger. There were several of the chief persons of his little band still around the board, but none of them moved or showed any sign of anxiety, and, in truth, they had been so long inured to hourly peril that danger had lost its excitement for them. The young lord was absent only a few minutes, but, on his return, he did not resume his seat, merely saying to the soldiers around, "To the saddle with all speed. Lead out all the horses. Some one bring me my armor. Do not look pale, my mother. I know not that there is any cause for alarm, but I heard yesterday that troops were tending towards Bourges in a somewhat menacing attitude, and I think it may be as well for us to leave St. Florent for a time, and return to De Brecy." "Are they English?" asked Madame de Brecy, evidently much frightened. "Not so," replied her son, "nor are they even the rebels on the English part; but I grieve to say these are royalists, perhaps more dangerous to the king's cause than even his open enemies. I will tell you the circumstances presently, for there may yet be some mistake. The spears we have seen are very distant, and few in number. Our good friend above was quite right to give the alarm, but neither he nor I could at all tell what troops they were, nor in what force. I will go back and see more in a moment. In the mean time, however, dear mother, it would be well to have all prepared for immediate departure. I cannot receive these gentlemen as friends in St. Florent, and they may be very apt to treat those who do not do so as enemies. Dear Agnes, get ready in haste. Tell Martin Grille to have my mother's litter ready. I will return directly." Thus saying, he again went up to the watch-tower, and remained gazing along the valley of the Cher for 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour. There was much woodland in those days along that fair valley, and Jean Charost could not satisfy himself. Spearheads he certainly descried, but in the leafy covering of the scene they were lost almost as soon as perceived, and he could not tell their numbers. At length he turned to the warder, who stood silent, gazing out beside him, and pointed out one particular spot in the landscape. "You see that large tree," he said, "an evergreen oak it seems to be. The road divides there into two. One turns eastward to the right, the other comes towards the north. Watch those men well as they pass that spot. They must all show themselves there. If there be more than 50, and they come upon this road, blow your horn twice and come down. If they take the other road, remain quiet where you are till I come." The preparations of Madame de Brecy, under the effect of fear, had been very rapid, and she and Agnes were standing in the hall, ready for departure. A page was there also, resting on a bench half covered with armor, and as soon as his lord appeared, he sprang to arm him, asking, as Madame de Brecy had asked, Are they the English?" "No, boy, no," replied De Brecy; and then, turning to his mother, he said, "There is no need of great haste. We shall hear more presently. The fact is, the Count of Richmond," he continued, in a quiet, narrative tone, "has ridden the court somewhat too hard. He forced La Trimouille upon the king, as I told you the other night, and now he would rule La Trimouille, and through him his sovereign. He found himself mistaken, however, for Trimouille is a very different person to deal with from Giac or Beaulieu. Finding himself opposed, he determined to employ force, joining with himself the Counts of La Marche and Clermont, and advanced upon Châtellerault. When I left Poitiers, the king had chosen a decided part, and ordered the gates of Châtellerault to be closed against the counts. It was supposed, indeed, that the matter would be soon accommodated, for Richmond is needful to the king, and is himself but a mere cipher, except when serving his royal master. But since my arrival here, I have heard that, instead of submitting dutifully, he has levied larger forces, and is marching upon Bourges. If the troops I have seen be his, we shall soon hear more, and then, though doubtless there will be no great danger in staying, it may be better to retire before them. How do you go, dear Agnes, in the litter with my mother?" "Oh, no, I will ride," replied the beautiful girl. "I have become as good a cavalier as any man in your band." "Well, then, you shall be my second page," said Jean Charost, with a smile. "Come and buckle this strap on my shoulder. The boy can hardly reach it." Agnes sprang forward and buckled the strap, and Jean Charost gayly kissed her cheek, saying, "Thanks for the service, dear Agnes." His tone and manner were altogether so easy and unconcerned that even Madame De Brecy could hardly suppose that there was any cause for fear. But a moment after, the trumpet was heard to sound twice from the tower above, and then the step of the soldier descending the stairs heavily. "Now, dear mother," said Jean Charost, taking the old lady's hand, "you must let me lead you to your litter, for these friends of ours are coming this way. Run, boy, and tell Martin Grille and the rest to mount, and be gone on the road to De Brecy. Come, Agnes, come." All was soon in the court yard. It may seem an ungallant comparison, but all light things are more easily moved than weightier ones, and women, like dust, are soon disturbed by bustle. The very haste with which her son spoke destroyed all Madame De Brecy's confidence, agitated and alarmed her. Even Agnes felt a sort of thrill of apprehension come over her heart. But in those perilous times people were drilled into promptitude. Madame De Brecy and two of the maids were soon in the litter, and Agnes mounted on her horse by Jean Charost's side. She had seen him in times of suffering and of captivity. She had seen him go forth to battle and to danger. She had seen him in the chivalrous sports which in those times were practiced in almost every castle in the land. But she had never ridden by his side in the hour of peril and command. On many a former occasion, deep interest, compassion, admiration perhaps, had been excited in her bosom, but now other sensations arose as she heard the clear, plain orders issue from his lips, and saw the promptness and submission with which all around obeyed. Surely woman was formed to yield, and, beyond all doubt, there is something very admirable to her eyes in the display of power. But she was to witness more before the day closed. As they issued forth upon the road down to the village of St. Florent, nothing was to be seen which could create the least alarm, and turning towards Solier, all seemed fair and open. But still Jean Charost was watchful and anxious, throwing out several men in front, and detaching others to the rear, while, as they approached the little valley which lies between the Cher and the Avon, and gives its name to the small hamlet of La Vallée, he sent one of the soldiers on whom he could trust to the top of the church tower, to reconnoitre the country around. The man came back at speed and rejoined the party ere they had proceeded far, bringing the intelligence that he had seen a considerable body of horse following slowly at about half a league's distance. "Then we have plenty of time," said Jean Charost, in an easy tone; but still he rather hurried the horses, and, mounting the hill, the towers of Bourges were soon in sight. At that time the road to Montluçon entered the road to Bourges much nearer to the city than it does at present, and it was along the former that the way of Jean Charost lay in going to De Brecy. if he wished to avoid passing through the city itself. But as he approached the point of separation, the sound of a trumpet on the right met his ear, and galloping up a little eminence, he saw a large body of crossbow men, with some 30 or 40 men at arms, coming up from the side of Luçon. They were near enough for the banners to be visible, and he needed nothing more to decide him. Wheeling his horse, he hurried down the hill again, and speaking to his lieutenant, said, "There are the men of La Marche in our way. There is nothing for it but to go through Bourges." "Here is Hubert, come back from the front, sir," replied the lieutenant at once, "to tell us that they have got a party on the bridge over the Avon. They shouted to him to keep back, so they will never let us pass into Bourges." "The best reason for going forward," answered Jean Charost in a gay tone. "We are nicely entangled, but we have made our way through against worse odds than this. How many are there, Hubert?" "Much about our own numbers, fair sir," replied the man. "The others are a great deal further off, but we are right between them." "Oh, Jean, will you be obliged to surrender?" asked Agnes, with a pale face. "Surrender!" exclaimed Jean Charost, pointing to his pennon, which was carried by one of the men. "Shall De Brecy's pennon fall, my Agnes, before a handful of rebels, and you by my side? Give me my lance. Now, mark me, Dubois. The bridge is narrow. Not more than two can pass abreast. You lead the right file. Courbois, the left. Valentin, with the 8 last men, escort the litter and this lady. The object is to give them a free passage. We must beat the rebels back off the bridge, and then disperse them over the flat ground beyond. Go back to the side of the litter, my Agnes. 'Twere better you dismounted and joined my mother. Go back, dear girl. We must lose no time. Now, loyal gentlemen, use the spur. They have bid us back. I say, forward." Agnes was alarmed, but less for herself than for him, and, notwithstanding the wish he had expressed, she kept her seat upon her horse's back, with her eyes straining upon the front, where she saw a plume of blue and white in De Brecy's crest dancing in the air, as his horse dashed on. On the little party went. Words were passed forward from front to rear. Quicker and quicker they moved forward, till a short turn of the road showed them the bridge over the Avon, partly occupied by a party of horse, several of whom, however, had dismounted, and seemed to be gazing nonchalantly up toward the walls of Bourges. Jean Charost gave them no time to question or prepare, for he knew right well who they were, and why they were there. Agnes saw him turn for an instant in the saddle, shout loudly a word which she did not clearly hear, and the next moment his horse dashed forward to the bridge at what seemed to her almost frantic speed. She saw him couch his lance and bend over his saddle bow, but the next instant the greater part of his troop following hid him from her sight. There was a momentary check to their headlong speed upon the bridge, and she could clearly see some one fall over into the water. All the rest was wild confusion, a mass of struggling men and horses, rearing and plunging, and lances crossed, and waving swords and axes. Oh, how her young heart beat! But as she still gazed, not able to comprehend what she beheld, one of the soldiers suddenly took her horse by the rein, saying, "Come on, dear lady, come on. Our lord has cleared the way. The bridge will be free in another minute. 'Tis seldom De Brecy gives back before any odds." Agnes could have kissed him, but on they went, and she soon saw that he was right. Driven on to the open space beyond the bridge, the men of the Count La Marche still maintained the combat, but they were evidently worsted, for some were beaten back to the right, some to the left, and some got entangled in the marshy ground, and seemed scarcely able to extricate their horses. To Agnes's great joy, however, she saw the blue and white plume still waving on the right, and a clear space before them up to the walls of the city. Forward pressed the man who had hold of her rein. The litter came after it, as fast as the horses could bear it, followed by 3 or 4 servants in straggling disarray, but flanked on either side by several stout men at arms. This was not all, however, which Agnes saw when she looked back to assure herself of the safety of Madame de Brecy. On the other side of the bridge, and across the marsh which lies to the east, she beheld a large dark body of spears moving on rapidly, and at the same time, as they came closer to the walls of the town, cries and shouts were heard, apparently from within. "By the Lord, I believe they have won the city!" exclaimed the soldier who was guiding her; and almost at the same moment a man from the battlement over the gate shouted something to the conductor, who replied, "The Seigneur de Brecy, just from Poictiers. Long live King Charles!" "Ride quick to the castle gate," cried the man from above. "The Count of Richmond is in the city. They are fighting in the streets, but we are not enough to hold the town. To the castle, to the castle!" And he himself ran along the battlements to the westward. Agnes's guide turned in the same direction, but was met by De Brecy coming at full speed, a little in advance of his men, who now, gathered all together again in good order, were approaching the gate which Agnes and her companion had just left. Jean Charost heard the tidings with evident pain and anxiety, but there was no time for deliberation, and with one cheering word to Agnes, he wheeled his horse and galloped on to another gate hard by, close to which rose up the large round tower and smaller square keep of the old citadel of Bourges. Strong works, according to the system of fortification of that day, connected the castle with the gate below, and the space between the wall and the marsh was very narrow, so that the place was considered almost impregnable on that side. A number of persons were seen upon the towers as Agnes rode on, and when she reached the castle drawbridge, she found De Brecy arguing with a little group of armed men upon the crenellated gallery of the gate tower, who seemed little disposed to give him admission. "Tell Monsieur de Royans," he exclaimed, "that it is his old friend De Brecy, and in heaven's name make haste. They are rallying in our rear, and the other squadrons coming on. You can not suppose that I would attack and rout my old friends. You have yourselves seen us at blows on the meadow. Wheel the men round there, Dubois, behind the litter," he continued, shouting to his lieutenant. "Bring their spears down, and drive those fellows into the marsh if they come near enough." As he spoke, however, the chains of the drawbridge began to creak and groan, a large mass of woodwork slowly descended, and the portcullis was raised. "Forward, Agnes, forward!" cried De Brecy, riding toward the rear; and while he and a few of his followers kept the army in check, the rest of the party passed over the bridge, till they were all closely packed in the space between the portcullis and the gate. The latter was then opened, and riding on, Agnes found herself in a small open sort of court, surrounded by high walls between the inner and the outer gates. There were stone staircases leading up to the ramparts in different directions, and down one of these flights a gentleman in steel armor was coming slowly when the troop entered. "Where is De Brecy?" he exclaimed, looking down upon the group below. "I do not see him. Violet, you have not shut him out." "No, no, I am here," cried the voice of De Brecy, riding in from under the arch, while the portcullis clanged, and the drawbridge creaked behind him. "Pardi, De Brecy," cried the man from above, "you have brought us a heap of women. Men are what we want, for we have only provisions for a week, and we shall be closely pressed, I can tell you." "Here are 47 horses," replied De Brecy, "which will feed the whole castle for a month, in case of need. But there is no means of passing through the town." "Impossible," cried the other. "They are just now fighting in the castle street, to bring in safely the grain out of the corn market." Agnes then, for the first time, became fully aware of her situation, and that she was destined to be for some time the tenant of a small citadel, closely besieged, and but very ill provided to resist. CHAPTER 44.